So I did try to record some of my classroom time today. I did more lecturing than usual, so that gave me a chance to record myself. I can tell I talked more than usual because my voice is kind of scratchy. Maybe you saw it already, if I put it chronologically, or maybe I'll put it now. If it's coming now, then that's what's next. This is me talking to my classes. The Keystone Pipeline was conceived of as a way to take petroleum that is removed from the tar sands fields up in Canada and move it down across the United States. Some people thought it was the greatest idea ever because it would create jobs and it would help eliminate our dependence on foreign oil. And some people didn't like the idea because it encourages more fracking and extraction of this petroleum that's hard to get, that has a lot of potential environmental impacts to it. And I had a couple articles that I was going to have everybody read, and then we would talk about the articles, and then you could write a response and do an essay, and we would look at how to use MLA citations to support your arguments and to analyze the arguments being made by other people. But then I thought, well, you know, the Keystone Pipeline is a very important topical information. It's going to affect all your lives, whether we do it, whether we don't do it. There will be consequences either way. And it's in the news right now because just in the past week or so, President Obama has finally vetoed the idea for now and said we're not going to do that, but that can change when we get a new administration. They may change their mind again, so it's still a valid issue to think about and you should know about. And I had a couple articles that would be fine, and there's nothing wrong with that as an assignment, except it's not my preferred type of activity because while there might be a few of you that are really interested, a lot of you might be that you could care less about the Keystone Pipeline, and I would rather try to find something that you're more interested in that you can connect with. So that's what I want to look at today and possibly some of tomorrow. And in the end, you have to write an essay that can tie in at least 2 articles, and we can learn how to do the MLA citations and pull out the arguments from other people's writings. So the first question I have to ask you, how many of you in here have seen the movie WALL-E? It's set in the future at a time when humans have so contaminated and polluted the earth you can't live here anymore. And so they go off into space and they live on this giant spaceship. They spend most of their time riding around in these little hover chairs, which are pretty cool, just floating around and around in circles, and they've got this little video screen up in front of them, and so they're just watching, you know, Snapchat or Vines or YouTube or something, and they never even get out of the chairs, so naturally they've gotten incredibly fat. When this crisis happens on the ship, and the people are sort of jolted out of their chairs and into consciousness, and they're all astonished. It's like, we have a pool? The question I want you to think about and do a sort of quick response to on your paper is that accurate? Are people actually becoming that kind of lazy and resisting, you know, using their body any chance they get? Because like if you go into Target or Walmart, you know, they have those little carts now anymore, and that's great for people who actually, you know, genuinely need those if you're handicapped, physically disabled and can't walk. But you see more and more people who use those things because what's their physical handicap? Well, they've gotten so heavy that it hurts them to walk and carry all that weight around all day. Well, what kind of a vicious cycle do you set yourself up for then if you start using the little cart thing with the motor in it to get you around rather than walking? Are you likely to lose that weight? No, and eventually, you know, you get coronary disease and you die. So that doesn't seem like a good idea. So, and it makes it think, you know, you didn't see those things 20 years ago. You didn't see those things 10 years ago much. But they're more and more common. But at the same time, 50 years ago, you didn't see 10, 20,000 people in Los Angeles running 26 miles in the LA Marathon. And what did they do that for? A t-shirt? If 40 years ago you had said, let's get thousands of people out in the streets and tell them to run 26 miles, what did they want to do that for? And you had said, a t-shirt. You know, people would think you were crazy. So maybe people are getting more interested in being fit and getting exercise. So that's my question, my first question. Is that idea, as presented in WALL-E, that people might be becoming more sedentary and less interested in getting physical activity and ignoring their bodies? Are people becoming more physically lazy? Or maybe you can argue the other side and say, no, man, soccer leagues are bigger than ever and marathon running is bigger than ever. But what do you think? That's first question, and you only get like 2 minutes, but just a response. Do you think people are getting lazier, physically sedentary, or not? Because, you know, there weren't 24-hour fitnesses on every corner a few years ago either. Now they're all over the place. So 2 minutes to write about that. Second question is, do you think people are becoming or maybe just were they always? But are people mentally and intellectually lazy? Would we prefer not to think about things if it's difficult? If you have a choice between saying, well, let's analyze this and consider the alternative possibilities and look at the root causes behind situations and the possible implications for the future of taking different actions, or would you rather just say, things are the way they are because that's the way they are, and what's going to happen is going to be what's going to happen, so there's no point in thinking about it and discussing and stuff. You just do what you got to do. Are people willing to work hard intellectually, or would people rather just go with the flow and do whatever is easiest and not have to think about things too much? And this has less to do with physical laziness or intellectual laziness, but it's related in that I want you to think about the concept of sort of excitement and enthusiasm. So it's kind of like the spiritual aspect, not in a religious sense, but just in being spirited. And I want you to think about and try to address, what is it, if anything, that is it cool to be excited about things? One of the reasons why I wanted to get away from Reading Plus for a while is that as much as I like the program, it is not what I care the most about, what I feel passionate about, what I get excited about. I think it's a good program for people who haven't read much over the last several years to help build their speed and their stamina and their comprehension skills in reading. But it doesn't, I think, foster a great love of reading the way good books do. And that does get me very excited, and I'd like to spend more time on that. And it doesn't help you develop your ability to express your thoughts and ideas on things. Just in general, do you think it's cool to be excited about things, or what things do you think it's cool to be excited about? And just to get you in sort of an understanding of what I'm talking about here, this school, Palm Springs High School, has about 2,000 students, give or take a few. We're somewhere around 2,000. And we regularly go over there in the gym for pep rallies, all 2,000 of us. But at those pep rallies, there are maybe 200 students at the most, I would guess, that ever get on the floor. That's 10% of the student body is on the floor, and they jump and up and down, and they dance around, and they yell, and they scream, and they play instruments, and they are super excited. And the goal is to try and get the rest of the people excited. But the rest of the people, mostly your job is to sit there in the stands while the people, 200 people, 10% of the people are jumping around and being all excited. And maybe once in a while they say, okay, where's my sophomores at? And then, half of you jump up and say, yeah, here we are. And you get excited for 2 seconds. And then you sit back down. And half of you then are like, I'm not getting up and screaming. And idiots. But when I was talking to an earlier class, and I asked, is it cool to be excited like that? Most people were automatically kind of, yeah, it's cool to be excited. And more people should be excited at pep rallies and be enthusiastic and excited and jump up and scream and stuff. Yeah, people think it's cool to be excited, but it depends on what you're excited about. And I can illustrate that, Cody, also. I have a lot of posters in my room about things that excite me, and most of them cause me no problem, except for that one. A lot of students, especially guys, but a lot of students will say, Steve, why the My Little Pony poster? And in fact, at the end of the year, you guys will get a survey and be able to tell me what you liked and didn't like about being in my class. And last year, at least 3 students said they loved my class and really were glad they were here, except for that poster. Apparently, just having a picture of Twilight Sparkle and the crowd in the room is so bothersome to some guys that they were really uncomfortable, and it made it unpleasant. So this is what I want you to think about for this third question with 4 parts. So listen, because that's complicated, 4 parts. On a personal level, what kind of things do you think it is cool to be excited about? What kind of things do you think it's not cool to be excited about? And the second part of the question, not yourself, but thinking of your peers, sophomores or high school students in general, what do you think most of them think it's cool to be excited about? And what do you think most of them, and it might be the same as yourself, maybe you say, everybody agrees with me because I'm just that cool. Or maybe you think most people are different than I. I think some things are cool and some things are not cool, and most people have different tastes. What do you think the average, the typical high school student or typical sophomore, what do they think it's cool to be excited about? What do you think it's not so cool to be excited about? You understand? 4 parts. Personally, what's cool, what's uncool, and the rest of the herd, what do they think is cool and is uncool. Okay? 2 or 3 minutes, right about that. Okay, this is related, you'll see, to the topic we're discussing there about what's exciting, what's not exciting. Listen and watch this, and he does talk kind of fast, so you have to listen fast.
Good morning, John. I'm still excited about pizza. This is all very exciting except for your mustache. But you know who I'm not as excited as? This guy.
Oh my God!
These videos for me are a masterclass in being open to the wondrousness of nature and of the human condition and of the self.
Okay, I first discovered Hank Green about 3 years ago, and it changed my life, literally. And it was very much, a big part of that was just the fact that he has that very contagious enthusiasm for life and all parts of it. And one thing I love about him is that it's like 99% of human existence and the planet's existence and the cosmos gets him that excited, and he feels that enthusiastic about learning and about understanding everything around him. And I feel that way most of the time. One of the reasons why I have a hard time relating as much as I try to understand, when you guys say the articles in there in C-Reader are boring, is I don't find any of them boring. Because I tend to be interested in almost anything. And anything I can learn, to me, is interesting. I love Hank because I love the feeling that he's excited about 99% of what goes on in the world, and there's only 1% that he's like, meh. Whereas one of the things that depresses me sometimes when I look at high school students is a lot of the time it's like your 99% of the world is like, meh. And 1%, that tiny little window of things that you do like, those are exciting. But if it's not Grand Theft Auto 5, or it's not, you know, this week's soccer game, or you know, it's not that one particular thing that you're interested in, where it's the party Friday, then everything else is meh. So when I was thinking about doing that article on the Keystone Pipeline, I was like, for probably a good number of people, that's going to be pretty meh. So I would like to give you an option to find things that are slightly more interesting and easier to connect to for yourselves. Try to open your window past 1% and figure out what are the things you do care about, are interested in, that you can feel excited and passionate about, like, you know, a BL22 train, choo-choo train. Explain some of those on your paper and we'll take it from there.